Jeremiah Fears is one of the biggest risers of the 2025 NBA draft cycle. This is Floor and Ceiling. Let's break him down. Oklahoma freshman Jeremiah Fears is one of the most interesting point guards of the 2025 NBA draft. He was a four-star recruit in high school who actually reclassified, and he's been the Sooners' featured player despite not turning 19 until October. Fears is averaging about 15 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists per game, while topping a 31% usage rate. His efficiency, though, will need to improve. He's at 26% from 3 and almost has as many assists as he does turnovers. Fears rose very quickly into the draft cycle, but now he's sort of plateaued right around the end of that top 15, top 20 range. That can still land a valuable NBA guard. Fears reminds me of somebody like Jaden Ivey, so let's get into how he does his scoring and self-creation. Fears is a slippery slasher with his ball manipulation, speed, and ability to draw fouls. He's finishing 55% of his shots at the basket, but the difference in the half court and transition is worth pointing out. Fears makes 67% of his shots at the basket in transition, but against a set defense, that dwindles down to 47%. We'll keep breaking that down, but I want to focus on how Fears uses his creative handle and quick first step to create advantages. Like I said, Fears has the ball in his hands a lot. He also puts a lot of pressure on defenses, sometimes, but not necessarily in the pick and roll. Fears is fast, but he can slow down to tease defenders into making a move before speeding away again. I like when he uses a sharp crossover to do this, but it's really the herky-jerky nature to his dribble before that eventual acceleration, which is tough to contain. In college, most teams do not want Fears to attack their big. Either he'll get the step on them or he'll draw the foul. Fears is skinny, but he does an excellent job at creating and playing with contact. Right now, he's averaging 5.5 free throws a game, making 85% of them. That's plenty of easy buckets, in addition to the tougher self-created drives and scoops that the Oklahoma freshman has shown. At times, we've even seen him use a runner when playing in between. However, given that Fears is such a high usage guard right now, it's worth asking how sustainable that truly is. Basically, it's a question of whether his efficiency will scale up or whether he will need to scale down. In all fairness, it's very much worth pointing out that Fears is going to keep getting better. His responsibility in the NBA as well will go down in the short term. Still, that 55% at the rim, and especially that 47% in the half court, needs to get better. Right now, strength can still be an issue for Fears. If he doesn't get the foul, then he's not strong enough yet to dislodge defenders or consistently finish through the help. The Sooners guard is definitely quick, but his athleticism is more ground-bound than it is about exploding up. Fears only has 5 dunks all season, with 0 coming in the half court. Oklahoma lists him at 6'4", 182. I actually think that he's closer to 6'3", so that's solid but not great positional size for a point guard. I also believe that slowing down at the rim a bit more would be helpful, and it would be nice to see Fears at a Euro step or a side step to his finishing package. His handle is definitely creative, and when he meets physicality, he can have counters even if it is a bit of a struggle, but his finishing as a whole is still a little one note for my liking. For now though, we've seen how Fears can offset any troubles finishing in the half court with what he can do in transition. I think he's going to really fit the NBA well in this regard. The 18-year-old is a certain grab-and-go playmaker, whether that means scoring or passing. The broad strokes of Fears' self-creation as a pull-up shooter are pretty similar. Once again, the volume exists. This is both from the mid-range and from 3, but the conversion, particularly in the latter area, needs to improve. Still, Fears is a confident shot taker who's not afraid to have the ball in big moments. He'll pull up out of screens, off the dribble, in transition, no problem, and again, he's willing to do this from 2 and from 3. I generally find that Fears plays with encouraging pace when he gets to his pull-up, and I want to spotlight his work from the mid-range, which I think has real quality for a freshman. Fears' cadence and handle are purposeful, and he understands how to use a pick while keeping his angles open. This is going to be important versus drop coverage, and also as a tool for his half-court scoring if his at-the-rim finishing doesn't improve in that environment. As of now, Fears has made 16 of his 40 off-the-dribble middies. That, plus the overall volume on his jumper, and then the 85% from the line that I mentioned earlier, makes me buy Fears' upside as a self-creator off the bounce. Still, his three-pointer hasn't been nearly as efficient. The Oklahoma guard is 9 for 46, so under 20% on his pull-ups from deep. This is really important if Fears is to keep being a high-usage on-ball point guard. Right now, maybe the data makes that a little unclear, but he basically turns 19 at the start of the next NBA season, and he's shown enough flashes in his self-creation process to hold my interest. I'll acknowledge though that these have mostly come from the mid-range, and from deep, things can look uglier. At this point, defenses should be daring Fears to take threes off the bounce because he hasn't proven yet that he can make that shot. In turn, this can limit what Fears does in the pick and roll, both to score when he wants to get downhill, but also when he wants to get into the lanes to play make. Going forward, besides an overall improvement, I'd really like to see Fears punish bigs who switch onto him with his pull-up. If the Sooners freshman keeps slower, bulkier defenders on their toes with his pull-up, then he will have the handle and foot speed to blow past them and get to the rim. Of course, then the half-court finishing, like we mentioned earlier, would have to improve as well though. That said, Fears' three-point shooting is not necessarily doomed against a set defense. Again, he's a willing, although below average, stationary shooter. In fact, his distribution when it comes to pull-ups and spot-ups from 3 is very similar. As of today, Fears has made 13 of his 42 catch-and-shoot threes, which puts him at around 31%. That is compared to the figure that we'll see below, with 46 triples being attempted off the bounce. Fears' catch and shoots are not amazing or even good, really. The volume of makes is really small over 25 games, but I think the marginal improvement could be encouraging to some extent. There isn't too much worth reading into here for now, although I would say that this is worth tracking. So the discussion is probably more so about whether Fears can share the floor with other guards. This notion also applies to whether Fears can scale down alongside a bigger playmaker, or whether he'll only really be able to be an on-ball guard, which can be limiting in today's NBA. One last thing, I'd like to see Fears' volume from 3 keep going up. Right now, less than a third of his shots come from downtown. The Oklahoma freshman is a capable pick-and-roll operator, and what stands out to me the most is how he uses jump passes. Fears can be accurate when he leaves his feet, and he can do this on drives or when he fakes a pull-up. This is really useful coming out of screens, as Fears has already shown that he can execute passes over the top, as well as drop-offs in the paint. He's averaging about 4 assists per game. His assist rate is high, rounded up to 28%, and he's given a ton of responsibility and reps to create advantages. In addition to those earlier passes, Fears is also smart at recognizing when he draws 2 to the ball and releasing his screener. He's proven to be an accurate pocket passer as well, and I think that he'll make those short roll reads in the NBA. That said, Fears has 95 total assists to 92 turnovers. Obviously, that needs to improve if he's going to be an NBA point guard. It's also not just that, but Fears hasn't exactly been on an upward trajectory since the last time I spotlighted him. Progress is not linear, but that is important in the draft cycle. Despite being fast and having a pretty good first step, Fears can struggle to separate when defenders stay glued to his first move. He's not strong enough yet to create space with his body, and he can sometimes find it hard to turn the corner on bigs because of that as well. I think Fears makes the right reads more often than not, but there are plenty of unforced turnovers to go along. For all the good that he does generating threes and creating shots in the paint, there are also lapses in accuracy. Fears is going to have to be careful with the jump passes that he likes to employ, and when he gets walled off on his drives, then he'll have to be more mindful when he turns back around. For my liking, there are too many turnovers like that, which are really avoidable. Still though, I'm taking an optimistic point of view, with Fears being a high usage, high assist guard, who, like with his scoring, needs to become a more efficient playmaker. Getting stronger will allow him to get more paint touches, pressure the defense more often, and open up more passing reads. From there, Fears has proven himself to be creative with his handle and deliveries, so it will be about striking a better balance and turning the ball over less. Jeremiah Fears is not getting drafted because of his defense. I said this in my last video about Dylan Harper, and the same idea applies. The pitch is that Fears can become an advantage creator as a ball handler and shot maker, but then he has to hold up on defense. I think that this is even more so the case for the Oklahoma freshman since his output is shakier at the rim, off the bounce, and as a passer. I'm viewing Fears strictly as a positional defender on guards. He's not going to be able to switch, and one of the biggest things right now, much like on the other end, is going to be getting stronger. Fears gives up too much ground, and he concedes dribble penetration too easily. This is not unexpected for an 18-year-old freshman who's around 180 pounds, but improving his defensive resistance is going to be a swing skill for Fears. At this juncture, he's almost a non-factor defensively. Fears can get steals, he has 45 in 25 games, but he's not really making a defensive impact throughout the entirety of the game. Those steals largely come in the passing lanes, or sometimes if he crowds the ball handler. Something I'm going to be watching for related to his strength is how Fears navigates screens. This can be an issue on and off the ball. Plus, he's a mismatch when paired up against more forceful guards, or if he has to switch. Another improvement I'll be looking for is making multiple efforts more often, although I'll say that I don't think Oklahoma really emphasizes this for Fears. The Sooners' prospect is slightly better off the ball. I actually think that Fears can be okay when he's engaged. Overall, the 18-year-old can make some reads, but the thing is, he almost never comes up with a play. Even if he's on time, Fears is not creating an event or generally being disruptive. I'd like his engagement to trend up defensively because I found too many instances of Fears ball watching or reacting late to whatever is going on. Unlike Dylan Harper, who's strong and long, Fears doesn't really have many defensive tools, so it's key for him to at least make multiple efforts and offset his deficiencies here. As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a comment telling me what you think of Jeremiah Fears, make sure to subscribe to the Floor and Ceiling Substack, and if you enjoyed this video, if you want to watch more content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel as well. Take care, and I'll catch you guys next time.